The whispers cut through the elegant restaurant like shards of broken glass. Claire Morgan sat frozen at the corner table, her second-hand dress suddenly feeling like a costume, her presence an intrusion into a world that had made it abundantly clear she didn't belong. Across from her sat Marcus Bennett, the CEO, who had somehow seen past the labels and the judgments to ask his daughter's nanny on a date. But now, as the other diners craned their necks and exchanged looks of disdain, Claire wondered if this had all been a terrible mistake. She had known this moment would come, the moment when reality would crash through the fairy tale. Marcus was everything she wasn't, wealthy, confident, born into privilege. Claire was a 26-year-old woman who had clawed her way through foster care, community college, and countless odd jobs just to survive. She cleaned houses, worked double shifts, and poured every ounce of love she had into caring for other people's children because she'd never had anyone to care for her. When Marcus had hired her 6 months ago to look after his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, Claire had walked into the Bennett mansion feeling like an imposter. Now, sitting in this restaurant with crystal chandeliers and prices that made her stomach turn, that feeling had magnified 1,000 times. A woman at the neighboring table leaned toward her companion, her voice loud enough to ensure Claire heard every word. "Can you believe he brought someone like that here? She's obviously after his money. Gold digger written all over her." The man nodded, his eyes scanning Claire with unconcealed contempt. Another diner whispered to the waiter, pointing in their direction. The waiter's expression shifted from professional courtesy to thinly veiled judgment. Claire's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. She wanted to disappear, to run out of this place and never look back. Marcus had excused himself moments ago to take an important call, leaving her alone to face the silent verdict of strangers who had decided her worth based solely on her appearance. She wore a simple dress she'd found at a thrift store. Her shoes were scuffed, and her purse was a worn leather thing she'd carried for 5 years. Next to the designer gowns and tailored suits surrounding her, she might as well have been wearing rags. But it was Sophie who had changed everything. That beautiful, lonely little girl who had lost her mother to cancer 3 years ago and had been raised by a parade of nannies who saw her as a paycheck rather than a child. Sophie had been withdrawn and quiet when Claire first arrived, hiding behind her father's legs and refusing to speak. Claire had recognized that pain immediately, the ache of feeling invisible, unwanted, forgotten. She had sat on the floor of Sophie's bedroom that first day and simply waited, asking nothing, demanding nothing, just being present. And slowly, day by day, Sophie had emerged from her shell. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change everything, please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories that matter. Marcus returned to the table, his expression troubled. "I'm sorry about that, Claire." Work never stops. He noticed immediately that something was wrong. "Hey, are you okay?" Before Claire could answer, the restaurant doors burst open. Sophie came running in, her hand clutched tightly by Marcus's mother, Catherine, who looked equal parts exasperated and amused. The little girl's eyes scanned the room frantically until they landed on their table. Her face lit up with pure joy. "Claire!" Sophie's voice rang out across the hushed restaurant. She broke free from her grandmother's grasp and ran toward them, her patent leather shoes clicking against the marble floor. The diners turned to watch this new disruption, their expressions ranging from annoyance to curiosity. Sophie reached their table breathless and beaming. But then her eyes shifted to her father, and something profound seemed to dawn on her young face. She looked at Claire in her simple dress, at her father in his suit, at the romantic candles flickering between them. Sophie's mouth formed a small O of understanding. Then, in a voice clear enough for the entire restaurant to hear, Sophie pointed at Claire and asked, "Daddy, is she my new mommy?" The restaurant fell into absolute silence. Every conversation stopped. Every fork froze midair. The woman who had called Claire a gold digger looked like she'd swallowed her tongue. The waiter who had sneered at Claire now stared with wide eyes. Marcus's face went through several shades of red, but Catherine, who had caught up to Sophie, was smiling knowingly. She had watched over the past 6 months as her grieving son had slowly come back to life, as her granddaughter had finally found someone who loved her unconditionally, not for money or position, but simply because that's who Claire was. Someone who had learned to give the love she'd never received. Sophie didn't wait for an answer. She climbed into Claire's lap, wrapping her small arms around her neck. "I told Grandma you were on a date with Daddy, and I asked her if that meant you were going to be my mommy now. She said maybe, if we're very lucky." Claire's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Marcus, expecting to see embarrassment or regret, but instead found him watching her with an expression so tender it made her heart ache. He reached across the table and took her hand. "Sophie," Marcus said gently, his eyes never leaving Claire's face. "I was planning to ask Claire something very important tonight, but you might have just beaten me to it." Around them, the restaurant had transformed. The woman who had whispered cruel words now had tears streaming down her face. Other diners were smiling, reaching for their partner's hands, remembering perhaps what it felt like to witness love in its purest form. The waiter approached with champagne, compliments of the house, and an apology in his eyes. Claire looked down at Sophie, then up at Marcus, and realized that sometimes the family you choose is more real than anything biology could create. She had spent her whole life being judged, being dismissed, being told she wasn't enough. But here, in the arms of this little girl, and in the eyes of this man who had seen past everything society valued to find what truly mattered, she was everything. "Yes," Claire whispered, answering both Sophie's question and the one Marcus hadn't yet asked, but that hung in the air between them like a promise. "Yes, sweetheart, if your daddy and you will have me." Sophie squeezed tighter, and Marcus stood to embrace them both, and the restaurant erupted in applause. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Have you ever been judged unfairly or witnessed a moment that restored your faith in love? Drop a comment right now and share your story with us. Because sometimes the people the world overlooks are exactly the ones who hold the most love to give. And sometimes a little girl's innocent question can reveal the truth that everyone else was too blind to see.